Hello, everyone. I'm Colin Tessier of WrestleZone.com here to talk about this week's episode of WWE NXT. Mostly because there's a bunch of stuff to get into with that. Raw, maybe not so much, but we'll touch on Raw as well. But I did want to hop on the show today because big happening at the end of NXT last night. We'll get all into that before we do. Just want to remind you all this show, like everything we do here, is available on all of our platforms: SoundCloud, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, all that good stuff, and more. So please do leave a like and subscribe. We appreciate it. So NXT this week, September 13th, marked the 1-year anniversary of NXT 2.0, the drastic rebranding last year that ended the black and gold era that, took NXT in a very new direction compared to what it had been under Triple H's guidance, or authority, whatever you want to call it. When he stepped away, obviously we got into NXT 2.0. That's been the last year. Your mileage may vary. We've talked about it quite a lot here over here on our post shows and whatnot about NXT 2.0 all along this past year. Pretty rough beginning. It's gotten better here and there. And it's been maybe a little inconsistent, for lack of a better word, throughout. But at the very least, last night NXT was the celebration of that year, kind of honoring NXT 2.0, and throughout the show, it seemed like they were honoring NXT 2.0. It seemed like they were celebrating it and they're going to move forward as 2.0. At the very end of the show, we had a very special message from Shawn Michaels, who's the kind of the new head of NXT, especially with Triple H being in charge of all creative now for the company. Sent a message to everybody, the superstars, the fans, talking about NXT, talking about its past, present, and future. And at the very end of that message, the NXT 2.0 logo was shown, and it kind of like evolved, changed from Rainbow 2.0 into something new, into a gold and white kind of logo without 2.0. So now it very much seems like we're getting a new iteration of NXT, a new era of NXT. And no one knows what it means. No one knows exactly what that's going to look like. Ricky Zaldivar says the black gold is back. RP NXT 2.0. I'm not necessarily thinking it's going to be this, especially anything as drastic as 2.0 was in the first place. I think it's possible we could see maybe a compromise of Triple H's vision of what NXT was, of what 2.0 has been. As we've seen with 2.0, it's been a lot of, some of the new recruits that they've signed, maybe that haven't quite as much been the independent wrestlers, and more so it has been more of that kind of talent, whereas Triple H more the independent wrestling side. Now, back in July, I believe, I think it was right after Triple H took over as head of creative, there was a report, I believe it was from the Wrestling Observer, that the NXT would be returning somewhat to Triple H's vision. So I thought that last night when we saw this logo. Now, and that just says it's probably just a logo change. I would tend to agree. I would tend to think that, again, it's not going to be anything too drastic. I think it's reasonable to at least hope there's going to be some change. I really don't know what it will be. But I'm excited. I think a lot of people immediately hopped on and were like, oh, NXT Black and Gold is back. NXT 2.0 is done. And I don't necessarily think that's the case. I think doing 2.0 in the first place was so drastic. I would be surprised if they went completely the opposite direction. I think more of a middle ground is reasonable to hope for, at the very least. But it does feel significant in the fact that it is a new logo. It's the gold and white now, and obviously the gold has that association with NXT's past. So I do think that hope is there. Otherwise, I was odd because NXT was a very uneventful show until its last few minutes. It was very much a celebration of what 2.0 has been of this past year, and the champions, the stars that have kind of risen up through the ranks here. Braun Breaker, Mandy Rose in her great run, and a number of others as well. Kamala Hayes being another, but a very non-eventful show. There were title matches. There were things happening as always, but for what was an anniversary show, quote unquote, it felt very uneventful. In the end, the main event, Kamala Hayes is going to defend the North American Championship against the winner of a fan poll. At first, the winner of that fan poll was Wes Lee. Camelo and Trick Williams took him out. So then Camelo was left kind of without someone to face. And who to show up but Solo Sikoa, who had just last week moved to SmackDown. He showed up at Clash of the Castle aligned with Roman Reigns, joined the Bloodline, officially moved to SmackDown, so it seemed, last week, and joined the Bloodline, and then faced Drew McIntyre in the main event match. A big spot for him. Not even, like 2 days later, 3 days later, whatever, he faces Carmelo Hayes here, and he wins the title. So Sikoa brings the title from NXT, or at least we don't know exactly how it's going to work yet, at least from a fan perspective. And now the Bloodline has another title here. So now she's very happy that Solo finally won the title. Emphasizing she's very happy for him. And so the Bloodline gets all the gold. That seems to be the case here. And a lot of people are joking now. You got to have Sami Zayn win the 24/7 title or something to kind of really get the clean sweep or whatever. I don't know about that, but definitely a big move for the Bloodline here. And immediately I myself was like, is Solo going to move to... is the title going with Solo to SmackDown? Is he going to pull double duty? What does this mean for the title? I was surprised. I'm not going to lie, especially because Solo had just moved to SmackDown basically again last week, and Carmelo Hayes has been a great champion. He has become one of those real top stars of NXT 2.0. A lot of questions here. A lot of questions about the title. A lot of questions about, again, for me, for what Solo's going to do. Is he going to get on SmackDown full time? Is he going to do double duty? When Karrion Kross was the champion in NXT the second time around, he briefly pulled double duty. He was on Raw NXT for a couple weeks, and then he quit. He dropped the title and moved fully to Raw. But that was only because at the time he was the champion and they called him up. Whereas this Solo moved to SmackDown without a title, and then he came back to NXT last night and won the title. So unusual to say the least. I don't know exactly how it's going to work out. But it's interesting. At the very least, it added what last night's show really needed in terms of a little more excitement, a little more buzz. And then we got the logo reveal at the end there that really got everybody excited. Now to backtrack and talk about more about that logo here. Again, I don't know if it's going to be anything drastic, but it does feel like it's the end of NXT 2.0 as it has been, and whatever the significance or the severity, or whatever that might be in terms of how drastic the change will be. I don't know, but it does feel like an opportune time to actually really look back at this past year of NXT 2.0 and really just kind of to reflect and think about how we feel about it. If it is over, if we are getting something new, I will say on the whole, I have not particularly enjoyed 2.0. Or at least if we're talking past tense, that I did not. More so at first, if you watch our NXT post show, you know that I was very down on it at first. I very much was upset about the end of the Black and Gold era, and then I started to kind of accept it and roll with it, and even still, I didn't particularly like it. Because it really shifted to NXT firmly was the developmental brand, and some of the gimmicks that we saw, some of the performances that we saw. Again, these people are learning, and even if you say, okay, I can be patient with that, I can understand that. Some of the promos were kind of consistently pretty rough. Some of the matches aren't always quite there because again, everyone's learning; they're not quite polished yet. And it's so clearly that developmental aspect, and especially when you're used to having NXT. As it was with guys like Johnny Gargano, Tommaso Ciampa, any number of other very talented people. And they're all talented, but more polished and established people, putting on great matches, delivering great promos and whatnot. That change is pretty drastic, or it was. So for me, that often made it even more jarring. And that hasn't gone away. There's always that memory of what was. So, I don't want to bury anybody, but some of the gimmicks have been really just and they still are. So I'm this was the case at first, and then they kind of found their footing. To a certain NXT did, they got better as they went along, but some of the gimmicks even now just kind of make me cringe pretty much every time. Kiana James and this business woman archetype, she's got the handbag, it's goofy, and I can respect goofy, but if it's done well, and when it's not done well, it does not come off very well. to the point that it's like hard to watch sometimes. And there are plenty of other examples as well. That's one that I always think of. The Brooks Jensen thing last night when he hit on Mandy Rose and he was like, your tight toes look good. I was like, man, like, and like him and Josh Briggs and the Found Honey, like redneck kind of thing. Most of these characters are like stereotypes and like cliches, and it's very like two-dimensional. And we've talked about it on the show before. Like, I get trying to have a performer kind of establish that character, and then maybe you evolve it. So maybe again, this requires this patience and understanding. And I always tried, but like to some level, it's like, ooh, I don't know. Not just this year. It's not like Kiana James, because he does like Fallon Henley. I get how it's often difficult because like I can like the performer, I can like say, okay, this match, it was a good match, but then do they have a promo or some sort of segment otherwise? And it's like the gimmick is just like so off-putting in some capacity. Joe Gacy was a divisive one. I've often enjoyed at least the way he's played it, and maybe not always been the biggest fan of the gimmick itself, but the character, maybe not so much. But I've enjoyed like some of his performance of it. If you can get handed chicken blank, but if you make the most of it, like, to me that's what really counts with a gimmick, especially. So that's what it really boils down to. So I am hopeful, maybe to a fault or maybe too much, but I'm hopeful if there is a change here that we'll see some kind of return to the NXT of old, whatever that might mean. Because supposedly, by all appearances, nothing's really going to change in terms of it's still going to be Shawn Michaels. Triple H is in charge now. That's been the case since July 25th. So it's not like Monday they had some big change structurally, and then the next day they had the new logo. Like, no, this new structure has been in place for over a month now, and now we got this new logo. And now we're wondering what's gonna happen next. I don't know. I wonder. And that just brings up what's Shawn Michaels in charge. Could we see a change? I mean, again, he's been in charge, and now Triple H has been back since call it July. And we haven't really seen any drastic changes. We've seen some kind of changes a little bit here and there. 2.0 still very much was 2.0, even after Triple H came back. And then last night, you got the logo there. Then you wonder, okay, could we see something? As always, we're gonna have to wait and see what happens next. I don't want to sit here and openly speculate, because I don't know. I just don't know. But I hope that it does mean we're going to see some kind of change, more tapping back into the independent wrestling side of things, because I always enjoyed that. I try to keep up with the independent wrestling as much as I can. So at least kind of whenever I would see someone I knew, like Roxanne Perez, seeing her get signed and then come on the show, like, I'm all about that. I used to love that about the previous version of NXT. So I hope that that's more what we're going to be doing here, or getting from NXT. I really just don't know at this point. Now, just says the show's been better since you got Triple H. I'll say Raw and SmackDown, absolutely, like 100%, no doubt. I think 2.0 has still very much, or at least as of last night, continued to really have that same style. I didn't see as many changes there. If I remember, I think at first it did get better. We got the return of Index. We got some other things that I really enjoyed, myself at least. But then we had I didn't really love the Worlds Collide build, and then we've talked about that before. That I didn't really keep up with NXT UK, so that just wasn't really for me. So it's hard to really evaluate the Triple H being in charge era of NXT at this point because of those different factors. But if we're going to get changed, I think it's for the best. I think, again, I'm not the biggest fan of 2.0. I'm hopeful it'll be better now. But it's important. I want it to be more than a logo change. If it's just logo change, yeah, you can have that connection with the black and gold, or the white and gold era. But for the show to get better, you need actual change. You need to really whether it's the style or the philosophy, or as I mentioned a minute ago, if it's leaning back into the independent wrestling side of things, of talent acquisition, maybe, which it could. I really just don't know at this point. I'm not saying that's what I hope is the case, but we will have to wait and see there. But yeah, so Sikoa winning the title, and getting this logo change definitely gave the show more of a little more oomph at the end, so I'm hopeful. And leading in next week, it certainly has me more interested than I was otherwise. Because again, before that, most of the show was video packages about 2.0. Got a couple. The Creed brothers and Pretty Deadly had a very good steel cage match. Pretty Deadly retained. Damon Kemp interfered and cost the Creed some match. He handcuffed Julius to the cage wall. So that's cool. Keep that ball rolling. Joe Gacy's still trying to group camera grinds. Like stuff is happening. They've got it progressed things. But like again, I guess I was maybe to a fault expecting a bigger show for this anniversary edition of NXT. And again, we had to wait till the last couple minutes to get that. So I'm hopeful based on those last couple minutes. Solo winning, new logo, potentially whatever that might mean. I'm more interested than I was heading into next week. So at least there's that. I do also want to touch on Raw here because it was an eventful episode of Raw. Kind of to connect to NXT here. We had two former NXT stars win the WWE Women's Tag Team Championships, Dakota Kai and Io Sky. We had they faced off in the tournament finals with Raquel Rodriguez and Aaliyah a couple weeks ago. And at the time, baffling call when they had Raquel and Aaliyah win the titles. We talked about that on this show back then. And then we had, I think they defended the titles like once or twice. And we had this rematch with a Damage Control here. And then Damage Control won. Like they won. And it was like, it confused me, and I imagine maybe many other people, like why have Raquel and Aaliyah win in the first place when they didn't really do anything with the titles, and it would have been better for Damage Control, at least in my opinion, to win the titles in the first place. So it was a questionable call to give Raquel and Aaliyah the titles, at least in my opinion, and then you have them get the titles like 2-3 weeks later anyway. It seems strange. I was like, it felt like they were kind of maybe righting it wrong in a way. But then, like when that wrong is there in the first place, like it's still there, right? So I don't know. I think I'm glad Damage Control got the titles. I think they again should have got them in the first place. I still think they definitely need more tag teams here. I do hope that they're going to start leaning more in NXT. Like they said something on NXT last night. We have like Nikita Lyons and Zoe Stark face Kiana James and Ariana Grace, and they almost made it kind of seem like, oh, this team like could challenge for the women's tag team titles the on the main roster can potentially at some point. We saw Toxic Attraction like move up to SmackDown and like this past week, but like they're on NXT too. So we're definitely seeing a lot more crossover. So it makes you think that, especially with the women's tag team titles, when you don't have a lot of tag teams anyway, like that would, to me, pretty much necessitate leaning into NXT more. And so I hope they do that. So good for Damage Control. Bayley also confronted Bianca Belair. So it seems like that's where we're heading for Extreme Rules. And that's cool. Bayley's supposed to challenge Bianca before she got hurt over a year ago. So that match is a long time coming. That's been the story that's been kind of brewing since Bayley returned alongside what became Damage Control. So I like how that's been kind of bubbling for a while now. And now we're finally potentially getting that, possibly at Extreme Rules. So I'm in favor of that. I'm sure that'll be good. As for the women's tag team titles, Nesha points out, you've got to have Sasha and Naomi return now. I mean, that remains a very big X factor. Nobody really knows what's going on there. I don't know. The stuff with Sasha and Naomi, like it keeps going. Every week they're gone. Every week everyone's like they're going to come back now. They're going to come back now, and they haven't. They're off doing their own things. Sasha Banks is modeling. They're doing fashion shows and stuff. Good for them. They're advertising the October 10th episode of Raw in Brooklyn as the season premiere, I believe, and that would seem like definitely a potential time to do that. So yeah, I don't know. If not, then I have no idea. I mean, I feel like they might be holding off for at that point to have it come on a big show like that. But yeah, I don't know. Obviously, the big stars, and I was just saying that they need more tag teams, so they definitely would benefit from that to have them back in the fold there. But like both as a fan and like working in the business, every rumor comes up, you're like, it's gonna happen this week, and it doesn't, and you're like, I guess I've become a little cynical with this situation. It's like they could show up at some point, maybe they won't, and we'll just wait and see what happens, and we'll go from there. But as for the women's division itself here, Nessa says he still wants Becky versus Bailey. I mean, Becky Lynch is sidelined right now. She'll be coming back at some point in the not too distant future. So maybe that's a match for Rumble. Maybe they hold off to WrestleMania. I don't know. That's definitely a big money match they can potentially do. And speaking of which, DJ wonders, how long do we think Damage Control will have the titles? He says until WrestleMania. I don't want to speculate about release rumors there, so I'm not going to talk about that. But for Damage Control here, I mean, I think they should have been the champions in the first place. I think they could definitely have a pretty good run with them. I do think, again, Sasha and Naomi are the X factor there. If they return, I would imagine they will probably get the titles pretty quickly. I would guess they will have them at least until like the day of the Survivor Series. I think it's possible that maybe like if we're speculating about Sasha and Naomi or whatever, I think they could win them maybe a Survivor Series. I think it's in Boston potentially, so that would be a pretty big spot for that maybe. So and that's not too far away. So I would say that seems realistic and possible. Seems like they could have a good run. WrestleMania is a stretch. I think that's pretty long. I think they could. I think there was no question of talent, but I guess to that point, they don't have a lot of depth anyway. So it could be WrestleMania potentially. I do think again, Sasha and Naomi are a big factor there. We'll wait and see how it goes with that one. Another thing I definitely want to talk about is Johnny Wrestling is back. Johnny Wrestling wrestled on Raw for the first time since he came back to the company. This was his first match since he left NXT last December, and it was a good one. He wrestled Chad Gable, one of the absolutely most underrated people on Raw. I would even say in WWE at this point. Absolute banger of a match. Great match for both guys. Great spot to put Johnny Gargano in against someone as talented as Gable to really kind of show, because again, not everyone on Raw probably watches NXT or let alone watched NXT past tense when Gargano was on it. So this was a great kind of like coming out party, showing the world who Johnny Gargano is, what he can do. He won. He got attacked by Theory after the match, so keeping the ball rolling with that. I remain very, very happy that Johnny's back. He posted a very emotional Instagram post yesterday about his return, about how he's been dealing with some body issues and things like that while he's away from the ring and getting back in shape and stuff like that. Definitely recommend checking that out if you wish. But like, just you could tell he's such a good guy. Like, he's got a kid now. You can tell he loves wrestling. You can tell every promo he does. You can tell he's so happy to be back. I'm so happy he's back. I missed out having him on WWE TV. So looking forward to seeing what he does next potentially. Nesha says he could take the money back from Theory. That's one possible thing. Also want to touch on Kevin Owens cut one hell of a promo on Theory on Monday, basically saying you're not the handpicked future anymore. That's not how it works. Saying that guys like Theory are a dime a dozen. They come and go. They fizzle out. But guys like Kevin Owens and Johnny Gargano, work their asses off, and you can count the guys like them on one hand. Amazing promo. I definitely recommend checking it out if you haven't seen it. Kevin Owens, an MVP at this point. So I like the idea of potentially having Owens maybe get involved in this somehow. It's like this like unofficial three-way storyline here, because like Owens very like at first he connected, like you mentioned, like they had an issue with Theory and Gargano, like having a problem with Gargano, and then it turned into this really passionate promo. So now you've got like the Owens and Theory piece. Owens will face Theory this upcoming week on Raw. You got the Gargano side of it as well. So potentially a three-way match for the briefcase would be awesome. I'd be very happy if either Gargano or Owens won the case. But then the whole point is Owens is saying like he really said on Monday he doesn't think Theory's the future, but he wants him to prove him wrong. That's one heck of a story. Like he wants him to show him that like no, he is the future. Like that's great because this promo really like put a dent in that facade of like this guy's the future that we've all been saying for the past. And in terms of like because of what he was saying, it's true, right? You can have a number of guys that have got a great look, but then fizzle out. Whereas you got to really earn being a top star. It doesn't just happen. So I'm on board with this. It's a lot of fun. So you asked Kevin Owens back to babyface. I mean, reportedly that's the case. He's feuding with Theory, very much a heel. So I would say that seems to be the case. And I have been enjoying it so far. Heck of a promo. Definitely recommend checking it out. Those are the big things I want to talk about. One, you've got Roman Reigns not being on the show, and he holds both world titles. That lessens the big things got to talk about. So Yeah, another week about Roman Reigns there. He was on Impulsive, Logan Paul's podcast. Lots of good stuff there. Make sure to check that out as well. We've already got one quote up from today, WrestleZone on the news side. We'll have more coming out of that as well. But you can also listen to it and check it out because it's, even though stuff isn't always like newsworthy, it's fun interactions, a fun talk from Roman Reigns there. So definitely recommend that. Otherwise, here, folks, we'll be back here next week with the Raw NXT post show. Thank you so much for tuning in and then giving your thoughts. I appreciate it. And that being said, remember to do one thing above all others, and that, my friends, is to enjoy wrestling. Thanks for listening.